Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to In Defense of the Hays Code. I am your host, Ellis Womack. This is my co-host, Zach Anderson. Just occurs to me, we probably didn't do that in the last episode. We're fine. And today we will be covering 2 months back. We introduced you all to James Cagney, who was, I think, one of the premier, if not the best, gangster actor.
Hmm.
You know, people can argue, whatever, but that's my opinion. And today we will be covering a different sort of film, one of only two that I'm aware of, where he plays a law enforcement officer, a G man, FBI man, however you want to call it. And in the movie we will be covering today is 1935's G Man.
Which is appropriate since he's playing a G-Man.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
normally I'm like, "Who boy, do we have a lot of things to say about it?" But
right, yeah.
uh,
Yeah, so give us some history on the film.
well, I mean, I think if memory serves, this was one of a handful of films that Cagney made when he had switched companies a couple times, and I think this might have been one of the ones that he worked at as a different film. It's very interesting because this is one of only a handful of films that I know of that was personally approved by J. Edgar Hoover himself.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay.
He was initially a little hesitant about the movie because it showed an FBI agent going against orders
Okay.
and
Yeah, yeah.
um just roughing up suspects. But then the movie, pardon the pun, made gangbusters
Yeah, yeah.
in the
Right,
box
right.
office,
Yeah.
and Hoover was like, "Oh, yeah, no, great movie, no problems."
Yep.
He was he was on set, which again I've only heard of with another film that came out maybe 30 years later or 20 years later. He was on set to basically make sure everything was kosher and nothing was done that he disapproved of.
Wow. Okay. So
Hmm.
he was J. Edgar Hoover was supervising this
Yes.
film.
Hmm.
Huh.
It's I think it's interesting to me because like the film, there's a couple scenes in it that are meant to sort of um, echo things like the Kansas City massacre, where a bunch of gangsters killed. There was a shootout and a couple gangsters killed. Let's say it was maybe a FBI agent, then like a cop.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm hearing sirens. Um, and then of course, the Little Bohemia shootout with Dillinger.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
But it's fascinating to me because, like, unlike a Public Enemies or a Gangster Squad, or even no, hang on, my brain did not just forget the
Who's in it?
hang on, everything is slipping. The one about the prohibition agent, whose name I can't even. Elliot Ness. Elliot Ness
Oh, yeah,
came
yeah,
out in the
yeah.
'90s. Has Sean Connery,
Yep.
maybe '90s. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, I don't know either.
No, The Untouchables. I'm an idiot. It's
The
called The Untouchables.
Untouchables.
Uh,
Of course, a classic.
it's, that was embarrassing, ladies and gentlemen, but we're keeping it in. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. We don't edit here. We just
no,
let it roll.
but like I said, unlike those three films, which came out decades later, this came out just a few years to maybe even just a couple months after everything happened. Dillinger was still fresh on the people's minds when this movie came
Man,
out.
that's wild. Uh. so at the very beginning of this movie, they I think this version was like a re-release, it
Mhm.
seemed like.
Yeah.
Because it had like these actors, I think they were actors, playing FBI agents. And they were like, so this was a film that was made, and it was the first time that G-Men was, you know, a thing or whatever in movies. I don't remember exactly what they said.
Mhm.
And they were like, okay, so roll the film.
Yeah, that was added in 45, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So why did they do that?
I think because the film was just so popular, so successful,
Okay.
and plus to try to bring in recruits for the
Oh,
FBI.
yeah. Gotcha.
Um, there are very interesting things about this film. I think I didn't know until I watched it that, like, for a while they weren't allowed to carry guns. That was not made up for the movie.
I did not know that
Real.
either. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Mhm.
Yeah, so originally the FBI,
Mhm.
Department of Justice, um yeah, they couldn't carry guns, but they were tasked to stop people like Dillinger,
Mhm.
who, Thompson submachine guns, all, yeah, I mean, come on, all kinds of weaponry.
Now, here's something interesting. You specifically mentioned the Thompson.
Yeah.
Did you notice something a little strange in the movie? None of the gangsters were using Thompsons.
I didn't notice that.
The FBI agents all had like Thompsons and shotguns and all this stuff.
Okay. Because I was gonna say thought I saw Thompsons in the movie. You're
You
not saying they
did,
weren't
yeah,
in the movie.
right.
Okay.
Because of our friend the Hayes Code, which
Ah,
was absolutely
interesting.
terrified that if kids saw, like, oh, look at these cool gangsters with their cool Thompsons, they would want to replicate them.
Hmm.
So they just gave the Thompsons to the good guys.
Because even the Hayes Code was like, "That's an awesome gun."
Yeah.
They were like, "Yeah, that's such a cool gun that yeah, we can't let the bad guys have cool guns."
Did you want to go a little bit into the plot of the film, since you
Yeah,
just now saw
yeah.
it, before we delve any deeper into our thoughts on it? Because I feel like otherwise we'll just transition into our thoughts and we never talked about the plot.
Yeah, we won't mention the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it'll just be our opinions
Hmm.
and take hot takes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought of course yeah, the way it started with the FBI talking about the movie, and then it zoomed in, he was like, roll the picture, and then that uh like, Wonder Brothers, I think
Mhm.
it was Warner Brothers. I said Wonder Brothers, but it was
I,
just Warner
I heard
Brothers.
Wonder Brothers, but I was also willing to bet that I had misheard you. So thank you for confirming that I hadn't.
Yeah, I
Oh,
I yeah, it was not Superhero Brothers, the Wonder Brothers. No, yeah, so just the way it zoomed in, and then the movie started, and um, you know, y- you've mentioned this um several times to me, that and even today you've said it, just that Cagney is one of the uh quintessential gangsters.
mhm,
And so to see him still be a gangster
mhm.
by attitude is what I
Yeah.
mean. By attitude, but on the right side of the law.
They didn't
Um
file down any of his edges at all.
they didn't what?
Good. They didn't file down any of his edges.
Correct. Which which was a real life thing with the G-Man,
Mhm.
is, yeah, some of them cross lines and things like that, obviously.
Mhm.
But yeah, the plot. He starts off. He's gone to law school. He is about the law, but he wants to be a good guy lawyer,
Mhm.
and he's not getting much business because it's criminals and thugs that are wanting him to represent them, wanting him to represent them. Yeah, in court, and he's like, nah, that's not me. I'm gonna do good work for good people.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, circumstances happen, and one of his buddies tries to recruit him to work for the Department of Justice, and he very reluctant. Things happen. He gets a push, so to speak, and he signs up. And from there, the movie really takes off, um, because he you find out he has a past, he has connections with some of the villains, but at the same time, they understand he's going straight, and it's just an interesting uh an interesting look at relationships between friends
Mhm.
that don't agree on big things.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we're on the other side of the law, but they're both doing their jobs. Bad guys doing bad, good guys doing good.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, as much as this movie is is difficult to like talk about and go in depth for me, it is a great movie.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so much fun. And yeah, it's exciting. It's got a good story. It's got Cagney. You want to just talk about Cagney for a
Yeah.
minute?
Well, I was going to say, to kind of tag onto that, it's a great movie, but I don't know if it's a memorable movie, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. That's actually what I was saying with it's
Yeah,
kind of hard to talk about.
because it's a good movie, but nothing in it particularly jumps out besides Cagney, and that's because
Ah,
you put Cagney in anything, and Cagney's going to stand out. Um,
sure.
yeah, I talk about Cagney though to sort of segue into what you were saying. I still say he has, of course, because he's Cagney, he's the main character, but he has some of the most memorable bits of the movie, I think.
Mm,
When the one guy is like, yeah, hey, if you helped my friends, we could get you into places. And he just grabs the guy by the shirt collar and punches him out the door.
yeah, the lawyer
Yeah.
does. He was still a lawyer then.
Only for his friend to, there's another knock on the door and he opens the door, reaches out, grabs the guy by the collar, and it turns out to be his friend.
Right. Yeah. He's like, Ned. And he's like, yeah, it's Ned. Take it easy. Yeah. So, yeah, he starts out with, like you said, the edges.
Mm-hmm.
They did not file down the edges. Even when he was a lawyer, he was like, oh, you're not going to bully me. Bap.
And what's funny
Assault.
is later in the film, it's mentioned, that he's a college man.
Mm-hmm.
And around all these other people that didn't go to college, because I love that line where they're making fun of Phi Theta Kappa, and he's walking behind them. Where did y'all go to school? What was it, Flatfoot Kappa? And it's so cheesy, but
Oh.
it's so funny.
And the
Yeah,
timing makes the cheesy like okay.
yeah.
Because yeah, they're talking about him. He's right behind them, and he comes in with that zinger, and yeah, it's not it's bad, but
Mhm.
it's done in a good way.
I Would you qualify this movie? I don't know if it's not bad enough to just be bad, but I don't know if it's even bad enough to be so bad it's good. It just sort of, like you said, it's a great film, but it's not a great film. It exists in this weird sort of vacuum.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I think it's a great film.
Mm-hmm.
So this might be one that we have differences of opinion about
Mm-hmm.
because I loved it, but like you said, it's not memorable as
Yeah.
in like even so I watched it yesterday and right before we started, I was like, okay, let me think. And I was looking at the cover and I was trying to bring back things. It's not super memorable, but while I was watching it, I was like, this is exciting. This is fantastic.
I can remember when I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is great. But then, we're heading up to the podcast, and I'm going, what's the movie about? What's the movie about?
Okay. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Is it a good movie from your perspective?
Like I said, I know I've kind of gone back and forth, said several things because you know me, I like to talk. I'd say it's a good film, but it's not memorable.
Okay, yeah.
Because in my opinion, because some people go, well, if it's a good film, surely it's memorable. Memorable does not always mean good.
That's true.
We talked last episode about Love Finds Andy Hardy.
Very memorable.
Very memorable, but
very bad.
But so to me, it's like it's a good film. It works. It's passable. The actors are good, even if I think this is one of the few movies that suffers from a not very memorable supporting cast.
That's interesting. Yeah. Maybe that's why it's not so memorable is because it's just like, oh, it's just James Cagney.
Yeah.
The whole way through, it's like that's what's interesting. Of course, you see the bad guys, you know that they've got a pass.
Mm-hmm.
His boss is the one other character that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's one scene where the boss is like, a guy comes in and threatens him, and he's like, "All right, bub, if you're gonna come after me, here's where I'm gonna be. Here's what I'm gonna be doing. You let them know where I'm gonna be at. Bring it on. I'm gonna go by myself." And I was like, "Oh, that guy's all right. He's interesting."
Well, it's interesting because like a lot of the actors were big names at the time, but they just never they didn't carry over. Like Anne Dvorak, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. It's Dvorak.
Right.
Probably like German or Austrian or something. It's beyond my capabilities. But like she was a pretty popular actress back then, but you don't really hear people talk about her, and she did a good job.
Oh, if I'm
remembering which one she was, because there were two female actresses.
Right.
Which, by the way, can we talk about that scene? It is Anne Dvorak when he goes in to like talk to her, and she's up there singing, and there's all these people throwing ping pong balls at each other, and it's never explained.
Dude, I was hoping you knew some kind of historical thing about what was going on. They walk in, it's just like a regular 30s nightclub, whatever, and everybody is throwing ping pong balls. Some of them were fluffy like cotton balls. Everybody's just throwing them at each other, including her while she's singing. And Cagney's getting hit in the face, and he's like trying to get him out of his way, and then he throws one, and I'm like, what is this?
I'm sure there's some sort of basis that I don't know about, and I can look up later. But it felt like I don't know, like a Muppet Show or Monty Python, or like even just Mel Brooks. Or Mel Brooks sketch, and I'm like, okay, there's going to be a punchline. Something's going to get said. Cagney is going to comment on how strange this is to her.
Right.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I'm sitting there going, well, movie, I know I'll remember this part because this will be haunting me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So, I think there must have been some kind of trend going on at the time where that's just something that happened, even though I've never heard of it, never seen it in any other movie.
I'm sure I can Google it later and something will pop up, and then I'll be able to tell people, oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. So
Yeah,
you're witnessing a point in time, ladies and gentlemen, where for once the 1930s man is stumped.
yeah,
That was.
he's drawing a blank for the first time ever.
So I was really
Man.
looking forward to talking about that scene because I was watching it going, what is this? And I'm scrolling through the comments on YouTube and everyone's commenting on how wonderful an actress she is. And I'm going, is nobody else asking about the ping pong balls?
That's hilarious. No, yeah, I was watching it and I was like, okay, there must be something historical about
Mhm.
this. And I was just waiting. I thought they might mention it by name, like you know, club ping pong tossing, like some
Mhm.
name. I don't know what I
Yeah.
was. Yeah, I was like, okay, they'll mention. Uh, they'll talk about. Oh yeah, this is my first time to see this happen.
Yeah.
But nope, nope.
Nope.
It was just assumed, and that's why I'm guessing it had some kind of historical context for that time and place.
Mhm.
But yeah, with all of your knowledge on that era, as well as just the movies I've seen, and I've also researched that time period. It's very interesting to me. But yeah, that was just like whoa, whoa, whoa.
Like I said, I'm sure once I get around looking it up, there'll be some explanation. But I just love the thought of like the director going, we can do anything else with this scene. We've got to do something else. And not Herbert Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover standing over his shoulder going, no, the ping pong balls have to be there. They have
Yeah.
to be.
That'd be great if Hoover was just like, I just think this is a good idea. Like there's no other reason. It's just Hoover was just like, I think this would be cool. Maybe we'll start a trend. And they're like, no, I don't think that. He's like, I am the FBI. And they're like, okay, we're gonna throw ping pong balls at each other. That would be great to find out that that's true.
But yeah, I mean,
I was just gonna say that so the bad guy,
mhm,
um so who was kind of the crime boss, um and when Cagney went to the club to let him know
mhm,
that he was going to DC to become a G-Man.
mhm.
So that character was very interesting. I wish he had been in it more. Because he said that he was giving up the life of crime, and so they weren't going to be on opposite sides of the law. And so yeah, there's a lot that I wish they had kind of developed a little bit more there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it for me it was just exciting to see Cagney kind of go through the ranks of training as an FBI agent. Like once they did, so they trained with guns because they were like, if they ever give us guns, we need to be ready.
Yeah.
And they were like, don't let the noise scare you. And he just goes ding 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 ding, only bullseyes. And I think he hands back the gun and says something like something to the effect of I don't want to reload it because the noise might be too loud or something like that.
Yeah, that's Cagney.
Yeah, he was just very very Cagney.
Yeah, Cagney was not one of those people you wanted to say anything to that he could throw back in your face later, because he would.
Yeah, yeah. And that's something that I have enjoyed with Cagney and just the fact that he his acting is very quick.
Mhm.
Meaning, okay, so he didn't write the script,
Right.
but his delivery is as if it's happening in real life, and that's just testimony to good acting. Like that's basic acting is that you want it to look like real life, but when you're appearing to be quick-witted in a film, if you do it wrong, it's rough.
Mhm.
It's so tough to watch because it's just like, oh no, that was clearly written, and this guy fumbled it bad. But with him, he not only says the line, he gives like a look. You know the look I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, I got you back.
Yeah, and like I said, I think Cagney is just I don't know. There are other actors in the film. Like we do have a returning friend of the channel, supposedly. Supposedly, okay. So the scene where they're transporting the one guy out of the train station
Mm-hmm.
and the shootout occurs.
Right.
One of those gangsters is supposed to be Ward Bond.
And where do we know him from?
Uh, he was in. Well, of course, he was Bert the cop in "It's a Wonderful Life."
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Okay. So, oh man, now I gotta rewind it and see
I've
if I
studied
can.
it frame by frame. I might have found him in one shot, but it's
Okay.
so incredibly hard to tell.
Interesting. Okay.
Plus, I mean, that's 11 years before "It's a Wonderful Life." So,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. 11 years. Okay.
mhm,
Well, that puts some perspective too on that he was just an extra.
yeah,
Hmm. All right. Well, yeah. So a returning friend,
mhm,
with a minor role,
yeah,
if you can call it a role. It is. It is a role.
mhm.
But oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
And it was also the first I the name of the actors left me. The guy who sort of played not the FBI agent who sort of handled most of the groundwork in the field. Kind of tall, thin featured.
Okay.
Um, the one that Cagney had to give all the information to, and then he tried to catch the guy.
Yes. Yes. Now I know who you're talking about.
I've seen him in one other film. He was in a mystery comedy that was based off of the literary detective Michael Shane. Apparently, it was a series, and I probably saw the second one. Um, Very funny actor, so it's very strange to see him in such a small role for that to be his first role too.
Oh, in G-Man
Yeah,
was his first role.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't catch that.
Sorry. Um,
Got you.
mhm,
Yeah. Okay. Well, so there was a lot of see this is why I like talking to you about this because I never would have known any of this stuff. I would have had to Google for hours, and
mhm,
I I'm here because you've got movies for me to see and me to respond to, and that's what I look forward to.
mhm.
But I love hearing all the backstory.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Yeah, it's great.
And like I said, this is such an interesting film because it is such a good film, but at the same time, it's like it's so easy to pick apart
Uh-huh.
at points because I don't know. He might have unhooked the handcuff, and it was just pulled so far away it didn't look like it. But so they've handcuffed one of the gangsters, and they're leading him through. It's the scene with the car that starts chasing them,
Mm-hmm.
and when they get back to the station or whatever, and he unhooks the guy's handcuff, it looks like he just pulls his wrist through the cuff, and I'm going, oops. Like I said, it's very possible because it was such a small motion that, and the camera was pulled so far back, didn't catch it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm sitting there going, well, that doesn't look very secure.
How many times have you seen this movie?
All throughout once. Bits and
Oh,
pieces of it
wow.
twice. Uh,
Wow. Okay. You just pick up so many different things than I pick up.
well, that's why I had to scramble to do all the rewatching today.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
Well, yeah, but still, like, I don't know. Yeah, so I watched it all the way through for the first time
Mhm.
yesterday. And yeah, I just wouldn't have caught all these nuances. But overall, I would give this one a 7 out of 10 because we've said this like 25 times. It's a good movie, but it's
Mhm.
not memorable as in you remember what happens in it.
Mhm. I was also going to say 7 out of 10. In fact, I was thinking 7 out of 10 mere seconds before you said 7 out of 10.
Nice, nice.
Because yeah, sort of like you said, it's it's not a bad film. Because I've only seen one film with Cagney that I would consider a bad film, and that's just two films with Cagney that I would consider bad films. Um, but he turns in a performance here. I love at the end, and I'm not spoiling too much, but when he hops out of the hospital bed, still bandaged up,
Yeah, yeah.
go fight the bad. I mean, that's very Cagney.
Oh, it was awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to give it anything lower than a 7 with Cagney and just that force of personality, that force of nature, behind it. But I think it could have stood to have maybe not a stronger cast, but a more memorable one. Um, I don't know. I'm a big fan of looking at looking at the Roaring Twenties, the movie we watched, not the decade. Uh,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
um, Humphrey Bogart as the main bad gangster turned in
Yeah,
such an amazing performance.
for sure.
Ah, if it isn't my old sergeant.
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you don't really get that from any of the villains here. There's no
Right.
real I don't know. I'm a sucker for a movie with a really good bad guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of times the good guy's only so great because of how bad the villain is, because it's a force to be reckoned with. You know, Joker and Batman are like the quintessentials
Yeah.
of the personification of that, in pop culture. And because he didn't have an arch villain
Mhm.
in this, that might be a big part of why it wasn't so memorable.
Yeah. Because the villains to me, I keep referencing, oh, this villain, that villain. I know there's two of them, but if you ask me to pick them out, like which one's which out of a lineup, we wouldn't have a fun time.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's mainly what's missing is just because Cagney is such, like we've said several times, he's such a force of personality,
Hmm.
and he's pushing against these guys, and because there's nothing pushing back, it gives too easily.
Sure, sure. It's almost like not fair to the bad guys.
Right, right. Like I'm trying to think who they could have cast in that role in that time period because Bogart wasn't even in his gangster film stage yet. So they got like Boris Karloff. But
That
I mean, just
that that
mhm.
kind of heavy
Yeah,
personality, like they come on the screen and it's like, okay, this is their movie.
mhm.
Yeah, somebody like that.
Or
A
even like
modern day example is like Samuel L. Jackson. Like
yeah,
no matter what he's in or what he's doing, when he steps on the screen, okay, his movie. And so yeah, to have someone like like that to have played the opposite, this movie would have been, yeah, probably a 10 out of 10.
Because like I've heard this recently since we talked a lot about him. Apparently, back in the day, William Powell, back before the Thin Man, played a lot of, along with the detectives, he played a lot of movie villains.
Oh,
Can
cool.
you picture if it had been James Cagney going up against William Powell as the
See,
gangster?
that would be interesting because, because William Powell, such class,
Mm-hmm.
and classy villains are scary villains.
Yeah. Because I think that's what they were trying to go for with this villain. He wasn't really the bad guys in this film. They weren't really thugs. They were more just we have all this power. And like just to have somebody like William Powell, who not only, has that class, he could have given it back to Cagney with the verbal barbs.
100%, 100%. And I was thinking also Cesar Romero could have done it.
Oh yeah.
That would have been wild. But I'll say, yeah, so I've rated it, and I think it's a good movie. It's everything we've said, I would just be repeating. James Cagney movies are good. You should watch those. And I look forward to doing more of his too.
Yeah.
Like when he does go up against mainly good guys. In his films, he's usually the villain.
Yeah.
But
there's another film where there's another film where he played a government agent, and it'll be fun to watch because we can talk about what it looks like when a movie isn't restored properly.
Okay. We'll do that. We'll do that. I look forward to it.
But I think next week we'll take a break from the Cagney, and we will do our first dancing picture. Not a Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Well, this is a movie from 1939 called The Dancing Coed, and starring a returning friend of the channel. 2 returning friends of the channel.
Okay. Who is that?
Lana Turner, Cynthia, not Cheryl. Cynthia.
Not Cheryl. Yeah. Watch the last episode to get that reference.
And Ann Rutherford.
Okay. Interesting.
3 returning friends of the channel.
Look out.
I can't remember the actor's name. Shipley.
Okay.
You know who I'm talking about? Or do you need more?
I need more.
It happened one night.
Okay.
The guy on bus.
The bus. Yeah.
He was all like, "Oh, it's your pal Shipley." He's got a role in this movie.
Okay. So that's next month.
Yeah, that's next month. Movie. Not next week. Next month.
Next month. Awesome.
Well, as always, I'm your host, Ellis Womack. This is my co-host, Zach Anderson, and I have nothing but movies and time. Catch you later.